So, I, 34M, am a software developer, and compared to the rest of my family, I make a lot more money than they do. My mother is a retired music teacher and my dad runs the local hardware store. I also have a younger sister, Catherine, 30F, and I haven't been in touch with her for the past 5 years. It's mostly because she's a horrible person and is really spoiled and entitled. She has always been that way, right from her childhood, and my parents have done nothing to discourage or prevent her from becoming that way. I tolerated her for a really long time, but 5 years ago, she brought her new boyfriend to Christmas dinner and I was hosting it that year. I had just moved into a new apartment and I really wanted to do something special but true to character. Catherine ruined the entire party by making unnecessary remarks about how small and old-fashioned my house was, and that it was not in even a good neighborhood, and kept bragging about her new boyfriend who happened to be pretty rich and lived in a sprawling estate that was more than 10 times the size of my apartment. I couldn't take it and I told her that I, unlike her boyfriend, had moved into this apartment and was paying all the rent on my own and did not need my parents to help me out. Something that my sister and her boyfriend could not say for themselves. And I also told her that if she had such high standards, then she could escort herself out of my house and never come back. She and her boyfriend obviously took offense at that because it was all true, and then they left. After that, we have not stayed in touch with each other and my parents have tried really hard to get us to talk, but I want nothing to do with her. So far, the only reason I had had a relationship with her was because of my parents, but I couldn't put up with this any longer. It has been 5 years since we haven't spoken, and recently found out that she was engaged to her boyfriend, the same guy that she was dating 5 years back, and they are about to be married in a couple of months. My parents, like fools, insisted on covering the cost of the wedding venue and decor because they did not want to be outdone by the groom's parents. I think it was a pretty idiotic move on their part because, first of all, they should have known that their daughter has expensive taste, and it's going to be way out of their budget. Secondly, there was literally no way that they could have outdone the groom's parents because they were a lot more financially stable than our family. I don't even know what they were thinking, but they had already made the commitment and the wedding was just a couple of months away. Of course, with whatever my sister was planning, my parents realized that they wouldn't be able to afford to cover all of that since my sister's wedding plans were way out of their budget, and they came to me to ask for a loan a couple of days ago. And even though we had had a good relationship for the past couple of years, I had to decline because of something that happened several years ago. The reason I'm on Reddit right now to ask if I did the right thing or not is because a lot of relatives have told me that I'm being petty, and I really don't think so. Back when I was about to graduate high school and start college, my parents told me that they would not be covering my college tuition or any other expenses because now that I had turned 18, I was on my own. I was a bit taken aback by that because my parents had always been very supportive of me, so this seemed out of character for them. But they told me that back in their day, they had to look out for themselves after they turned 18 because their parents were not well off enough to cover their expenses once they had become adults. And it apparently made them very resilient and independent, so they wanted me to do the same thing. They hadn't even set aside any money for my sister and me. They wanted us to work through college, just like my parents had. My course was not easy, so I really did not want to waste my time working alongside college because I was not sure whether I would be able to keep my grades up that way, and it's not that college is cheap, it's pretty expensive, so no amount of slogging would be sufficient. So I suggested that maybe we could take out a student loan for me, but my parents were not fine with that, and even when I suggested that we could borrow some money from some relatives and return it to them later, they said that it was insulting that I would even suggest something like that. They said that it was against their very principles to borrow money because it was just very pathetic. I even remember fighting with them a lot over this topic specifically, but in the end, I was able to get my grandparents to help me take out a student loan for myself, and that's how I made it through college. I was very mad at my parents back then because of this, but eventually, I forgave them. However, that does not mean that I forgot about it entirely. My sister never had this problem because she never even went to college. She did not think she needed to bother herself with this because she knew that she would just take over dad's business in the future, or she would just get married, and that's exactly what she's doing. So props to her. Anyway, the bottom line is that I remember what my parents had said about borrowing money when I had said that we could have taken it out alone to cover my college education, and they had said no because it was against their principles. So now, according to their very principles, it should still be something that they are against. When it came to my college funds, all they cared about was their principles, but now that Catherine wants to get married and have a grand wedding, they suddenly forgot about all of that. I thought it was very convenient for them, and I wasn't going to let this slide because they had caused a lot of inconvenience for me back then. And I really don't think that my sister's wedding is more important than me going to college, because had I not been able to complete my degree and get the kind of grades that I did, I probably wouldn't have had this job, and I probably wouldn't even have been in the position to be able to help them out financially. So when they approached me to ask for help, I reminded them of what they had said to me about loans and borrowing money and how it was against their principles and stuff, all that jazz that they had said to me. They were a bit dumbfounded because I don't think they had expected me to remember all of this even after so many years. But I had, and I remembered it quite well. So after I was done talking with them, they had nothing to say to me and they just went back home quietly. I thought that was the end of it, but then a bunch of relatives started contacting me and telling me that the way I had treated my parents was very humiliating for them, and they were very upset about this. My parents had apparently been telling everyone that I had changed after coming into so much money, and I was apparently holding that over their heads now, trying to put my parents down, even after everything that they had done for me. I did not think that was an accurate representation of what I had done at all. I had just put up a fight against something that I thought was unfair, and that was it. So I ended up not speaking to my parents at all, because if they really had a problem with what I had said, they should have confronted me about it right then and there, instead of going behind my back and whining about it to the rest of the family. I also did not speak to the rest of the family because if they did not understand where I was coming from, I had nothing more to say to them. Anyway, it was not like I was invited to my sister's wedding, so I don't think I needed to contribute in any way whatsoever in the first place. And for the past couple of days, I have had no contact with my parents or anybody else from the family. I've been pretty happy about it because I don't think I've done anything wrong, but 2 days back, my parents visited me once again, and this time they were very upset. They told me that apparently, because of me, they had been uninvited for my sister's wedding. I don't understand how I could even make something like that happen, since I have not been in touch with Catherine at all, but they told me that apparently when they told her that they would not be able to fund the wedding and they needed some help from her and her in-laws to cover the cost of the things that they wouldn't be able to afford, she lost her mind at them and started pressuring them to arrange for the money somehow. Because if now, at this stage, she went to her in-laws to ask for financial help, it would make her family look really bad, and she did not want that. She was kind of right, because if my parents were not sure whether they would be able to cover the entire cost of whatever they had promised, they shouldn't have committed to it in the first place. She's usually very spoiled and entitled, but I don't think she was wrong for what she said here. I personally think she and her fiancé should have covered the entire cost among themselves, since his family is rich enough to afford that, but if my parents have committed to something, they should follow up on that. And she's right about them making her look bad in front of her in-laws, so I would say that she had every right to freak out, and I told my parents as much. I also told him that I had nothing to do with this because I had not told them to commit to something like this. They had brought this onto themselves and they had nobody to blame apart from themselves at this point. I would definitely say that uninviting them from the wedding altogether was a bit of an overreaction for my sister, but then again, what were they expecting from Catherine? She has always been like this, and they are responsible for it, not me. However, my parents were just not ready to hear it, and they kept insisting that if I had just helped them out and loaned them some money instead of being so petty and nurturing age-old grudges, then they wouldn't have been in this predicament right now. I thought it was very unfair of them to blame me, and I told them to leave, and they did, but they still kept me, and now, the entire family has turned against me and is accusing me of being a selfish and heartless person. Personally, I don't think I have done anything wrong, but anyway, Ida for refusing to contribute to my sister's wedding because my parents are unable to afford it? Update 1. Hi, so I have decided to go no contact with my entire family. What's crazy is that both my dad's side and my mom's side of the family are united against me right now, apart from my grandparents obviously. My mom's parents are no longer around, but my dad's parents are on my side, and so far, they have been trying to maintain the peace of the family, but even they're getting tired of this drama. Everyone in the family, they have had differences in the past, but I guess their hatred toward me has made them come together. Well, at least I'm glad that I was able to do something good for the family. But now, I have blocked all of them and I really don't want any drama right now. Somebody in the comments suggested that maybe the real reason all of them seem to hate me so much and need a reason to go against me is probably because they are jealous, and I think that's a pretty valid point. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I am doing a lot better than most of the people in my family, and I don't think they can stand it. I never really took anybody's advice growing up, and most of them had told me that I should just get a business degree and take over my dad's store because that's where the future is, instead of constantly being on the computer, and guess what? That's how I make my living now. And there is the fact that I'm a lot more successful than most of my cousins, and not only are they jealous of me, but their parents also seem to resent me, and it just doesn't even make sense to me because I think families are supposed to be happy for each other's successes and share that joy. But that has never been the case, and it just makes me so sad sometimes, but I can't help it, some people just are like this. I'm willing to bet that my parents are already enjoying the fact that everyone is against me right now because according to them, I'm the one who got them uninvited for my sister's wedding. We have not spoken since they came by the last time to accuse me of ruining their relationship with my sister, which I still don't understand, but my grandparents have told me that they are not speaking to them either since my grandparents are on my side here. It just tells people how ungrateful they really are because my grandparents have helped them out so many times in the past, and yet, they don't seem to remember any of that. And that makes me kind of happy that I did not help them out when they came to me, because I'm pretty sure that they would have forgotten about it conveniently in the future. They take everything for granted, and it's about time that somebody taught them a lesson, even if it has to be somebody as terrible as Catherine. Update 2. Hi, a really funny thing happened yesterday. I was really busy so I couldn't share it here, but Catherine came to visit me. After I came back home from work, she came to my house about an hour later, and I was really surprised because I think I have mentioned that we haven't spoken to each other for the past 5 years and we do not have a good relationship. I was pretty sure that he was here to discuss her wedding with me because now that our parents are not even invited, I'm pretty sure that she needs money. But she was clever enough not to start off with that. Instead, she told me that she was here to apologize for everything that she had done in the past. She told me that she was about to start a new chapter of her life, she was about to get married and she wanted to formally extend an invitation to me before anybody else to make up for her behavior in the past. She claimed that she really regretted being a brat, but it was not entirely her fault because our parents never told her anything about her behavior either. So she grew up believing she was acting normal and acceptable in society, but now that she had grown a lot older, she knew that she had been a terrible person and she was trying to make amends with everyone that she had pissed off in the past. And she thought there was nobody better than me to start with because being her brother, I had to put up with her the most. I let her talk, and once she was done with her little speech, I told her that I was fine with it, and I was happy that she had finally come to her senses and apologized. But I knew that there was more to come, and I was waiting for it very patiently. And of course, she then started telling me that she knew that our parents had been horrible to me as well because she had heard from the rest of the relatives what they had been saying about me, that I had been selfish and heartless and petty just because I refused to contribute to her wedding. She tried to suck up to me and said that I was completely right about what I had said because at the end of the day, they had never helped me after I turned 18 and they were the ones who had committed that they would help her pay for the wedding, so it was not my responsibility to bail them out when they were in trouble. Especially considering the fact that we did not have a good relationship in the first place. I knew that she was ramping up to something and I just was waiting for her to get there eventually. After I did not say anything for a while, she finally told me that now that our parents were no longer invited, they had withdrawn whatever funds they had been promising her for so long. And she started ranting about how unfair that was because they were the ones who had said that they would cover at least some expenses and now, she was too embarrassed to go to her fiancé and tell him that after the fight that she had with her parents, they would no longer be covering anything, and his parents would have to pay for every single thing. And that's why she was here, to ask me if I would be willing to help her out in this spot just once and she would be thankful to me for the rest of her life. She even told me that she was willing to sign a contract or whatever it took to make sure that I knew that she would return the money to me eventually. Hopefully by the end of this year, but she just needed me to help her out right now and save her from the embarrassment of having to tell her fiancé about all of this. I thought it was interesting that she was willing to promise me to return the money and was even willing to get paperwork involved since that would make it pretty official, but I told her that I needed time to think about it because ultimately, even though she has apologized, we are still not exactly on good terms, and our relationship is still very strained. I thought she would understand, but she turned out to be pretty shameless and said that I was acting too pricey, and it was not much that she was asking me for as my sister. That was rich. Coming from her, since for the last 5 years, we have had no relationship at all, let alone, one of my siblings. I know I had already known from the beginning that she was here just to ask for money. She did not actually mean her apology and I told her that she was just like our parents, selfish and always just looking out for herself. Obviously, she started getting mad at me after that, and she began to yell at me, but I'm not my parents. I did not have any reason to put up with that and instantly told her to get out of my house because I was not going to tolerate this kind of behavior. She refused to leave initially, but I grabbed her by the arm and forced her out and she kept saying she would call the cops on me for attacking her, but I don't care. She eventually left and I was pretty pissed about it for a while, but this is just a stupidly funny incident to me now and I'm not gonna let it get to me. Update 3. So a couple of weeks have passed since my last update and I had just assumed that because my sister and I were fighting even now, the invitation that she had extended to me had been rescinded. But I was pleasantly surprised today when I received an invitation to her wedding, but I didn't know how to make sense of it. I felt weird about things so I decided to reach out to her. At first, she did not respond to me, but a couple of hours later, she finally called me back. She was pretty curt with me on the phone when I thanked her for inviting me and I decided to ask her what exactly was going on because I was pretty confused. She told me that she had meant her apology that day and she was genuinely trying to be a better person now. She had also arranged for the money herself, so she did not need anybody's help anymore. But she wanted me to know that she was not just putting on an act to get on my good side because I was rich and that she had meant every single word of what she had said that day. She also told me that our parents had actually made her realize what a brat she had been in the past and she was trying really hard not to turn into them at this point. So I decided to ask her if she wanted to invite them as well, and she told me that unlike what they were telling people, she had never actually uninvited them. She had just been really pissed off at them and said that they had put her in a very difficult position. Apparently, it was not like my parents had never had any idea what my sister wanted for her wedding and she had warned them right from the beginning that what she was planning was pretty grand and she didn't think that they would have enough to cover all of that, but they were pretty confident about it. So after talking so big, it would be pretty embarrassing for her to tell her in-laws that her parents were just all talk and they couldn't actually afford what they had promised. It was the fact that they hadn't even bothered to think things through and were so insistent on going out of their way to compete with her in-laws that really bothered her, and because she had been yelling at them, they were the ones who decided that she did not want them at her wedding any longer and uninvited themselves. She hadn't even said that to them nor had she implied it, but they had come to that conclusion themselves. And they had done exactly what they were doing with me. Instead of confronting her and talking to her about it, they decided to talk to everybody else about it. I have to admit, it's really screwed up for them to go around telling people that their kids are so terrible when they themselves don't even bother to clear the air with us when they have the opportunity to do so. Of course, after they have said such horrible things about us to everyone else, we are not going to be very inclined towards sorting things out with them, and even for that, they're going to find a way to blame us. They just constantly want to play the victim, and I'm glad that my sister is finally being able to see that now. Catherine told me that the rest of the family hasn't ostracized her like they have done to me, but she is still thinking about whether she wants to invite them because they seem to be pretty sure that they are on my parents' side here. However, with me, they were very nasty, but with her, most of them were still trying to explain why my parents were right instead of accusing her of anything outright. I think it might have something to do with the fact that my parents are too proud to apologize, but they are not too proud to live off of their kids in the future. And since my grandparents are not going to be helping them out anymore, they at least need Catherine on their side, so they are keeping that door open. That's just my theory, though, I'm not sure what's actually going on. But I don't know that they are treating Catherine very differently from how they were treating me, and it's sad, but it's not something that I'm not used to. At least Catherine is beginning to see the truth now, and if she is genuinely trying to be a better person, I think I'm going to give her a chance. After we spoke to each other on the phone, she apologized for throwing a fit the other day as well and said that she would really be glad to have me at the wedding because at least somebody from the family should be there. I haven't yet made up my mind whether I want to go or not, but I'm going to give it a couple of days before I get back to her on whether I'll be attending or not. It's not easy to repair a relationship that you haven't thought about in 5 years, but I also don't want to be the kind of person who always holds grudges and never lets anything go. I'll be miserable like that. I have even discussed this with my grandparents, and they have told me that if I decide to go, then they will be attending as well. Earlier, they had not been sure of whether they wanted to go or not, but given the current circumstances, they might want to, since it seems like Catherine is rethinking her relationship with the rest of the family and she might not invite them. Update 4. Hey, so yesterday, I attended Catherine's wedding. Well, attending would be misleading, you guys. I actually walked her down the aisle. Our parents, unfortunately, did not apologize to her or even reach out to her before the wedding, and that's why they were not even invited. She was very upset about it for a couple of days before the wedding, and she reached out to me, asking me if I would be willing to walk her down the aisle because she really needed somebody to be there for her as an emotional support. I instantly agreed because no matter what has happened in the past, nobody deserves to be treated like this. Especially by their own parents, over some stupid little fight. I always knew that it would be much easier for my parents to cut me off emotionally because my sister had always been the golden child. But to see this side of them, to realize that they were too proud and egoistic to even fix their relationship with the only child that had mattered to them throughout their entire lives, that was just low. And they are part of the reason that my sister had been a terrible person in the past. It's because nobody had ever bothered to correct her. As parents, it should have been their responsibility, but they never seemed to care how she was behaving and always thought it was a good idea to just let her be, which ended up turning her into a spoiled brat. I'm not saying it's entirely their fault, but they could have done something to avoid it and they did not. Anyway, when Catherine asked me to walk her down the aisle, I agreed, and she really seemed to be thankful for all of this because even the couple of people that she had invited from the family to attend the wedding had declined the invitation. I guess everyone wants to support my parents and be a part of the drama. I got my grandparents to attend though, and she apologized to all of us before the ceremony. Her fiancé also apologized to me for behaving badly with me all those years ago. Catherine told me that she had told her fiancé the entire truth about the situation with her parents, and he told her not to worry about the money, he would handle it all. So that's how it worked out for them, and she almost broke down before the ceremony because our parents were not going to be there but her fiancé, our grandparents, and I told her not to let them ruin such a special day for her. I wouldn't say that everything is fine and dandy now, but we are going to work on it and we're going to try and make things better for the future. I'm really willing to believe that she has changed as a person, and when I met her yesterday, I actually do think she was telling the truth about wanting to start afresh. So a lot of people might not agree with my decision, but I think I'm doing the right thing.